We're reopening our meeting. The next item is a DRB. We'll informally revisit the previous DRB decision dated 12/14/2015 for the Denneker Chevrolet building and discuss its conditions of approval. Okay.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
in all my years of experience on this board, this is the first recollection we brought an applicant back to review an alleged violation of his condition, because that's what it is. I'm puzzled by this. I'm concerned that we're not following the law, and I am not going to be part of this discussion. So I just thought I'd tell you that.
All right. Well, explain to me the part of the law that we're
Well, I don't know the law, but all of a sudden someone has said to me they want to revisit his DRB decision. He has a decision, it's been signed, it's been granted. If there's a violation, that's the town's job to look at the violation. That's not our job. We don't look at violations.
What's the staff's position on that, on his comment?
Yeah, would you like me to respond to that?
Sure, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So one thing is, I didn't write this decision. I don't include conditions about continuing jurisdiction, but this decision does have a condition about continuing jurisdiction, and it states the DRB shall retain continuing jurisdiction over matters described in the above findings or addressed in the regulations. The board reserves the right to hold a public hearing and reasonably require changes addressed in the regulations in order to maintain compliance with town ordinances. So, that's what the decision says. Also, they need a certificate of compliance or certificate of occupancy at this point because they're done with the construction. So they need to close their construction loan out and close their mortgage and move on. But I can't issue a certificate of compliance if there's open zoning violations. And so we went and we looked at the site and we saw some different things that were zoning violations. And my conclusion is that they're largely related to the fact that there's just more inventory there than was approved originally in the DRB decision. So when we were talking through different options for remedying it, sounded like you guys are amenable to coming and talking to the board and just talking to the board about what's going on there and how your plans today might be different than they were at the time of the original approval. And so this meeting would be an informal discussion to decide what the next course of action is. So maybe the next course of action is that they simply need to reduce their inventory and get in compliance with the zoning. Or maybe the next course of action is that we want to review an application for storage somewhere else, et cetera, et cetera. So there was some interest in the zoning violations at the last DRB meeting. These guys were amenable to coming in and talking with you. 9 minds are better than 2. And there's a condition for continuing jurisdiction in here. So this hasn't been warned as a hearing where a decision can be made today. You can't make any decision to change the previous condition of approval, but you could give just an informal review and suggest about what you'd like the next step to be, much like a sketch plan review would be of a subdivision that's not engineered for septic yet.
I have a question on what you just said, because I don't want to quote you incorrectly, but a certificate of compliance and a certificate of occupancy. For us, the certificate of occupancy is of utmost, concern and expediently, because we need that. What does the law say that we have to get the certificate of occupancy? That's important to me.
You got to be in compliance with the zoning.
Okay.
Correct.
Right?
Correct. So the certificate of occupancy is that last instrument we have to make sure that all the construction happened the way it was supposed to happen, and that the facility is being operated the way that was promised in the decision. So the decision and all the conditions behind it, we take that out in the field with us, along with the plans, to make sure it all came together right.
So when I look at this decision from September of 2015, and I was not part of this board at that time, one of the conditions was on the number of vehicles. Where is that? Yeah. I'm curious why you have so many more vehicles now than you anticipated having when you came before the board 18 months ago.
That's a very good question. When you're a franchise dealer, you have got to be able to take the vehicles when they're made available to you. And General Motors says that you're going to get a certain amount. And when you spend the kind of money that we spent, General Motors or any franchisor tries to give that new facility additional exceptional amount of product. So that is to be able to have what would be for us a grand opening, a spring sale, which is going to take place in April. So our choice was to not take the inventory and run short, because it's not something that you can immediately ever take care of. You can't say to General Motors, send me 100 vehicles, and they do. It is a long process that every 2 weeks, it ebbs and flows, and sometimes you could load up for a special sale and then sell down to where you don't have enough inventory. And earlier this year, we had such a desperately low amount of new car inventory that we actually had to go to our floor plan company and request that we get an increase in the amount of used cars that we could put in inventory, because General Motors could not supply us with the correct number of new vehicles. So that is only somewhat within our guidelines, that we control the destiny of the inventory of the dealership.
So
Okay.
how did you settle on 183 vehicles 18 months ago?
We took our best educated guess at a brand new business, because Mr. Shea didn't have the kind of interest in selling as many cars as we did. So we took the capacity of the lot at the time and decided that that was a fair number based upon historical values. That's the only way we could do it. We couldn't do it off of our own historical values, because we didn't have any to go by. So we took the best educated guess, and that's what we came up with.
Okay.
Well, in number 10, which Ann is referring to, it states the applicant proposes to reduce the number of existing parking spaces from 210 to 183. And in all your years of business, and your experience with ebbs and flows, with vehicles coming and going, why wouldn't you just keep it at 210 and not propose the 183?
Because at the time, we didn't know how the building was going to lay out. And at the time, there was enough places where we were instructed in our conversations where we couldn't put cars. So some of those spaces were taken away because they were no longer grandfathered. When the Shea operation closed and Denneker went in, those places where Mr. Shea could park cars, we could not. We don't know why, because it's to do with the zoning
Right.
from the town of Middlebury. Has nothing to do with us. It doesn't make any sense.
But it applies to your business.
But it doesn't make any sense at all from a business person's perspective to take valuable real estate on Route 7 and put cars 75 feet off the road. And that's what we had to do, or that's what the proposal was. Hence, we had to eliminate some of the spots that Mr. Shea could fill. And that's the answer to the question. It's not a good answer to the question, but it was the best answer that we could give you at the time, because that was the best answer that you could give us at the time.
And you had no idea that you would need another 100 cars on top of that?
You know, the car business is funny. They don't stack well. So when I say that, when you have lumber, you can stack it, but you can't stack cars. We couldn't put them across the street because everybody was very patient, and at the end of that, we were chastised for having our vehicles across the street while we were trying to build a building, knock down a building, and conduct business. So then we had to move the rest of those cars across the street. So while we see, there's an infancy period when you, this is a brand new business, and there's an infancy period. So while we decide what can go to Virgins, which is our spare facility,
Didn't you have a Ferrisburg operation?
that's not to be used, according to the state, it's not to be used for storage of motor vehicles.
Well, that's not what I'm asking. Wasn't that a new car business? Maybe
It
I'm
was, and it's no longer, and you're not allowed to put new
I
car
wasn't
storage.
suggesting that. I'm just wondering why your experience in Ferrisburg wasn't transferable.
Our experience in Ferrisburg, well, which question do you want me to answer? You said, did I have an automobile business in Ferrisburg? The answer is yes. Now, what's the next question?
That you had no idea there'd be you'd need an extra 100 cars
No,
to make
ma'am,
it
that
viable.
would be correct, because we were taking two facilities, Denneker Chevrolet and Shea Motors, and combining them into one facility that had two locations, so that we could, in the eyes of General Motors, have one better location than two quasi-locations. And at that time, we forewent. Shea's operation was returned to General Motors and put out of business. Denneker's was moved over. We had no idea what kind of a sales flow we would have, because anything was speculation. We certainly knew we were going to do more than Mr. Shea, but we certainly didn't know how many more we were going to do than Denneker and Ferrisburg. So now, we still have a storage facility, dealership, used car lot in Virgins on 22A. And as we matriculate our way through the system and do the learning curve, it's how fast can we get rid of used cars? How fast can we dock those cars down in Virgins so that they're not clogging up Middlebury and get down to what is a usable number? So this is a kind of a thing where I don't know what the anticipation is, but if we said to you very honestly that business is better than we expected, is that really a bad thing?
Well, that's not my issue.
No, we aren't concerned about whether, we're glad business is better, but.
So this site had a couple of problems. I mean, there's a couple of things that made this site hard to approve in the first place. One was that the cars that Shea Motors had there were parked too close, within the setback in the front, and the building was too close, so you needed a variance for the building. And so when I'm reading through the decision, one of the things they said when they granted the variance was that that you needed to rebuild it closer to the road so that you would have room to get cars around the back, because there was a wetland in the back and a road in the front. So it says the applicant has designed the project then to include the maximum front and setback possible while still maintaining adequate circulation space at the rear of the building. So having circulation space at the rear of the building you have to maintain that, because that's one of the reasons you requested the variance in the first place and why it was approved. Also, it's a non-conforming use, so Shea Motors had an automobile dealership there, and now automobile dealerships aren't allowed in that zoning district, but you were able to continue the nonconforming use because you were going to lessen the extent of the nonconformity. Meaning, Shea Motors had 210 cars, and now you're only gonna have 183. And before that, they had more in front of the building line. You agreed to only have 24 cars in front of the front building line. So that's what makes that important, because them agreeing to continue this nonconformity was based on you lessening the degree of the nonconformity. So if anything, you were agreeing to have a smaller business than Shea had there before in exchange for being able to continue to use it as an auto dealership, which isn't allowed in that district anymore. So that's why these things become important, because these promises that were made in order to get things from the board at the time. So now, if you're asking more from the board, they have to agree to kind of grant you these things in addition to the promises that were already made, if that makes any sense. I hope that helps clarify it.
Yes.
The other part of this is that this is the kind of area that when you sell a vehicle, be it a late model used or a new vehicle, the number of trade-ins is significant, much greater than 60%. So one of the issues that we have is, do we take the vehicles in the dead of winter when the market is terrible in order to comply with these numbers that we're not used to, and take those vehicles to auctions and not have the proper value put on the vehicles so that we can maintain a number? So again, it's a seasonal thing. And now that the spring market comes, now we take more cars to the auction, we sell more cars retail, we move the inventory faster, need less on the ground to do that, and we also have some track record now that we know what sells. So what we might have put on the vehicle grounds to begin with, we wouldn't put on now because it's not worth us having. The turnover's too slow. But you can't do that from day one. You can't. And we had to, when we first moved our lot, when on December 13th, when the Department of Motor Vehicles granted us the license to sell cars in Middlebury, we had 313 cars. We had to move them within 72 hours. So we started at a gross disadvantage, okay? And we had to move all those cars from Route 7 and 157 Moncton Road and put them on the property at Shea. So we have never had normal, because we don't know what normal is. So as we work through these problems, the last couple of weeks that we had cars across the street on the farmland, the situation got so bitter that we finally just took the last 25 cars and put them and jammed up the lot, because we had no other choice, because we were actually being reprimanded on a daily basis to get those cars.
By whom? Who was giving you a hard time?
It was reported, that's how we always get our messaging. It was reported that people did not like the cars across the street on the farm. I think Jen would be a better person that you might ask as to who those people were that complained. And they complained to Tom Corbin so much that Tom Corbin called the farmer, the Knott brothers, and pestered him so much that finally Tom Corbin called me and he said, Tom, listen, we've been very patient and we don't care, okay? And the Knott brothers don't care, but somebody cares. So here we were just concluding our business when we were notified again and again and again and again to move those cars. So finally, I had to take the consideration of the college, and the Knott brothers were getting pestered by the college, okay, by unknown people. We have no idea who it was. Apparently it's not privy to us, and that's okay. So we moved the last 22 cars that were there across the street and further coagulated the lot. And we had steadily, anybody that went past there on a daily basis would see that we had steadily worked the number down from over 200 cars across the street, and we were now down to 20. So in the final analysis, it was bitter. Every single day we got a phone call. So Jen might be able to tell you that, because I don't know.
How long was that after you're done doing your construction? It was like a couple weeks or a couple months?
No, a couple of weeks.
Can I just, so I'm listening to what you're saying, and I get it. You know, I understand you came from Virgin's, Shay's gone, new business, we're trying to figure everything out, and I'm listening to what you're saying. Let me ask this question. Once you figure out the needs of the dealership here and what's going on, do you think that you would ever be able to get down close to the number that was originally agreed upon, say the 183 cars?
We'll be able to get closer. So that's not something that's going to happen tomorrow.
I
That's
understand.
something that's going to happen hopefully in the spring selling season, so that we can unload the wholesale that would be worth 60 cents on the dollar. That would be crazy to move in the winter because nobody else wants it. That now it has a market. And I have already, to be counterproductive to Deniker Chevrolet, I've stopped ordering new cars so that we can get in line. We've lowered our used car inventory by almost $400,000 in 3 months. And we've lowered our new car inventory by $1.5 million. So I can do it financially, and I can tell you numerically, but we don't go out and count the cars on a daily basis. We do it by a dollar value. So the bottom line is that, to answer your question, we can get closer over time because we're getting smarter over time. And we know what the Middlebury market wants over time that we never knew before.
Okay.
Okay? I hope that's a
Yeah.
logical answer.
Related to that, are you, do you foresee that you will be under pressure again from GM to take a certain amount of cars immediately? Or is, from now on, is it up to you to order what you want? How does that, is that still gonna be a problem later on? Say, a year from now, can GM say, you gotta take 82 cars?
No, it comes with the ability to, we monitor that every Saturday morning. That's my job. And then I have a fight with General Motors on, you were given so many cars and you refused it. So I come to work to find out that I have too many cars for Middlebury. I come to work to find out I don't have enough cars for GM. And as our business grows, you see, it's like any good business in retail, it's replenishment. So can they insist upon it? The answer is no.
Okay.
Is there retribution of some form? The answer is yes. Okay? We've established some numbers, and I mean, just to give you an idea, in January of 2016, we sold 15 new vehicles. That's not exactly a barn burner when you have a lot full of vehicles. In calendar year January 2017, we sold 34. You do the math, and it's pretty bizarre. That's really turning out some product when you match it to 15. So how do we know yet until we have still full months that we can start to look at a track record? You know, we have a track record in Virgin's, but we can't utilize those numbers here.
What's the possibility of finding other property on which to store the excess? Whether it's used cars turned in the winter or new cars coming from GM for which there's no approved space on the existing business area.
When it comes to used cars, we can move the used cars at will, because we can put our used cars where we want them, which would be one of two locations. But we are not permitted at this time to move our new cars to anything but the lot at 510
By General Motors?
by General Motors. It's in our franchise agreement. So we cannot move those cars, not any place. And if we were to get a storage lot then we would have to get the storage lot approved, okay? And so that's not to say that they can't. So, one of our thoughts is that we own 4.5 acres in the back. And we want to, and we are getting it taken care of now so that we can bring to the town of Middlebury an application to make a parking lot back there. Okay? And it's our property, it's out of the way, it's hidden, and it has no, what I can't see where it has any negative impact at all. So that would mean that we would be able to keep our own vehicles on our own property.
Do you have any idea what number of used cars you have currently compared to the number of new cars?
Yeah, I have 107 used cars as of today.
Was parking on the hill, was that a pre-existing use of that hill? Inventory on that?
We're looking into that right now to see what the pre-existing use of that property was.
Okay.
But the capabilities of having that as a parking lot are very real.
Okay. My concern right now is it's really not, the number of cars is important, but my main concern right now is the lack of the ability for trucks to unload on-site rather than on Route 7. And I guess that's directly due to the number of vehicles out back, especially on that southwest corner where it's a narrow spot. Now, do you foresee a time when you will be able to unload cars off from Route 7? Because that was, moving the building forward was on the fourth item for a variance. That was one of the critical reasons why we approved that, so we could do that.
This is tonight. That's a truck unloading in the front of Denneker Chevrolet
Route 7?
tonight,
On
on
this
our
side.
parking lot,
Okay.
off the road, tonight, just before we left. Okay?
At 8:30 this morning, there was one on Route 7 on the road unloading.
But so is this going to be the norm then? That's my
That's
question.
what we're working toward.
Okay. Because yesterday there were two trucks at the same time unloading on Route 7.
Yeah, and one this morning I saw.
There's a truck unloading in our property.
On the
How do you
front.
tell a drug
On the
dealer
front.
he can't park in a public highway?
But the plan was to unload in the back, was it not?
That's not correct. From day one, and that was me, from day one, it was always in front of the building. Because there was a big swath there that there'd be no reason to drive clear around the building with a tractor trailer.
Well,
The
yeah.
access around the perimeter was for emergency vehicles, like a fire truck to get through.
So it is,
Yeah,
and you're right, Rick, there was a vehicle there today. And there was a complaint filed because I had an officer come and visit me today to let me know that there was a truck there and that he was notified and that he had to come and visit me. So I told him the same plan that I'm telling you, okay? And so when I asked who filed that complaint.
It was me. It was me.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. I had him stop by. I sent an email too.
So, well, he didn't tell me, but it doesn't matter who does
That's
it.
fine.
Okay? It
Yeah.
doesn't matter who does it. So that's what we're working toward right now, okay? And the bottom line is that it's, in the automobile business, it's turn and earn. So the faster we turn them, the faster we earn them. And there's a comfortable number to get to. And right now, we have too many wholesales. And don't forget, we also have almost 40 employees that are taking 40 spaces of our valuable spaces, which is why we're parking in the back right now, okay? So, is there parking allowed on the street in front of Deniker Chevrolet?
On the street, on the street?
Yes.
On Route 7?
Yes.
No.
No.
That's state,
I'm
that's state
asking.
land, folks, that's not Middlebury's land. The property belongs to the state of Vermont.
If there's a white line and there's enough room to park a car, the question is it legal to park a vehicle there on Route 7? I don't know.
That's a good
Well,
sheriff question. What do you think, Sheriff?
You can stand and stop, but it doesn't mean you can park there.
And that's
That's a
not,
breakdown lane,
Okay.
and that is state property.
okay.
So the town of Middlebury doesn't control state property.
But, all right, you can stop and park there, the duration, I'm not concerned. One of the issues, again, it's the unloading, to me, it's a lot safer for everybody, traffic, the truck driver, and everybody else, if that person could unload off Route 7.
Yeah, you've seen
I-
the last truck unload on Route 7.
Okay, I'm very happy to
Let me
hear
just
that.
speak to that,
I mean,
because, I'm
Go
sorry,
ahead.
didn't mean to interrupt you. Jen asked me that, so we started the ball rolling with getting the truckers. Now, we contacted the main dispatch. There's independent guys, I don't know if it's their factory guys, there's a number of different truckers that deliver, and a number of different cabs on the truck, so it's not one single company. So, obviously the word is getting to them because that guy was unloading in our yard today. I don't want to tell you that tomorrow, some guy that didn't get the word, it is on the street, But obviously, we're working towards that, and we've got the message out there that the truckers can pull in the front yard.
But we're going to stop them and have them relocate inside.
I'd like to point out, though, that in section 32 of the final decision from before, it does say the new site layout will allow for transports to unload on-site behind the building.
Yeah, I don't know why. I guess, I don't know why. It was always my intent that, well, if they're off the road, that's what matters, right? Doesn't matter.
Well,
inside.
Not- yes.
no, actually, what matters are the conditions that the board imposed when it decided to give you the variance. So I'm just curious as to why that wasn't discussed at the time.
Can't answer. I can't say that I remember, but I can remember that it was my intent from the get-go that we'd be off the road, because that was important to the town, and
Right.
understandably, and that the front area was gonna make it possible. I would wanna make it as easy for the trucker as I could, so.
Oh, I understand.
Pulling parallel to the road just seems like.
I'm
a
not
lot.
saying that that's a necessity. I've just wanted to point out that it is one of the conditions in here.
so what I'm hearing right now is you're gonna make a good faith effort to make sure, as best you can, that the unloading of cars will be off-road and on your site, wherever you can do it on your site.
Absolutely, already started.
You have to say, I'm kind of with Kevin on this, that to me, the biggest issue is not, is it 183 or 190? I don't think anybody thinks that we should, I mean, I think it is a problem if it's, dozens or hundreds of cars over the intended limit that you designed around, because you designed everything in your business around this parcel.
Just about 100.
Yeah, right. I'm saying, but we've been told that there is a plan, or a couple of potential plans, to work down from where it is now to something more reasonable. And I guess, I think what I am agreeing with Kevin is that, to me, it seems like there probably is a number above the approved number that this works, but the functional issues are bigger to me. Like, can people get in and out? Does the truck?
Kevin, I'm not here to carry anybody's water, especially Deniker's. But when I drive through town and I see a UPS blocking the road, I see a beer truck here in the triangle, and we're worried about one tractor trailer
No.
twice a week? I mean, come on, guys.
Well,
Tom
It's
Hanley
okay for a
Tom Hanley
UPS
told
truck
me-
to block Main Street Merchants Row.
Tom Hanley told me this morning that he was gonna ask one of his guys to swing by. And the guy wasn't gonna swing in and say, you have a zoning violation. He was only gonna stop in and say something if he felt like it was unsafe. So, I mean, I think it's a public safety thing, as opposed to us trying to control the right of way.
Don,
But
do you,
we're accepting that right now.
That's good.
Okay? And we're going to take, as we have with every other thing that has been imposed with us, we are going to take a good faith effort, to use your vernacular, and complete that and correct that. And although it might take a little time to work its way through General Motors, they'll get the idea, and then they'll have a place off-road on our facility to unload those vehicles and be safe for the public, for the driver, and for everybody else.
Can we talk about the number of vehicles parked in front of the building? So there's a total vehicle count issue, the sort of 183 approved, and we saw 280 some when we were out there. But then there's also specifically only 24 vehicles that are approved to be in front of the front building line. So that includes right in front of the building, and that also includes the side spaces that are in front of the front building line. There's only supposed to be 24 total, but like there were like 55 that day, and consistently there have been vehicles in front of the building itself. Can the board just kind of discuss their feelings on that, so that they're not just hearing this from me? That was
Well,
part
yes.
of your variance approval
Yes.
before I got here, right?
is the layout of where you have your cars parked, is it your intent, when you get settled and know where it's at, is that gonna follow the site plan that you got approved for having only 24 cars in front of the front lot line, or building line? Or is that, are you proposing to change that, or ask for a change?
I think this summer, we're going to learn by adjusting the lot what we actually can do and need to do. And if we can't come within those specs for some reason, then we're to come back and show you some variations. But if we can, don't forget, the number that was imposed and the number that's there, if you take the 22 from across the street and make us immediately move 22 and add them to 24, you have 46 vehicles, okay? And there was 51.
The 22 across, what 22 across the street you mean?
On the last day of the farming debacle, because there was...
Well, that's irrelevant to, I mean,
You have to put the 22 cars someplace, Kevin.
They were also never approved to be parked across the road. That was a zoning violation right there.
I'd like to take issue with the idea that the number was imposed. I mean, I was not on the board. Many of these people were on the board. And presumably, when they granted you this, you had an opportunity to consider the conditions and decide whether or not to go ahead with this. So did you not read them, or did you just assume that once you got into business you could ignore them? I just don't understand this.
I think we've already answered that question. We had nothing to match it to. So if I picked a word that has upset you, then accept my apologies. But the number that's there was a workable number for what we thought at the time. We haven't only filled our lot with cars one time, okay? We haven't even changed, because it's one of the things in there. We're not even talking about where they are. We're talking about how they line up. I've been in the car business for 42 years and never had anybody tell me how I had to line up my cars.
well, I don't think we've told you how to line them up, have we?
I asked you. I didn't tell you anything. I asked you, do you think that you'll keep parking completely 90 degrees opposite of the parking plan that you showed us in the final plans? And you said you thought maybe, and I didn't say anything about it.
And I said that right now, we're trying to see what makes more sense. And if anybody thinks that it's an easy maneuver to move 250 cars, particularly in snow, it's not an easy thing. So then we take and we move them and then we say, how much room do we need between them, and what's safe for the traffic. What I'm saying is that it's all brand new to us, just as it is to you. And we need some time to figure it out logically. And what we ask you for is reasonableness. We don't want to be held to a number. We want to be able to do what's best for business and hopefully what's best for Middlebury. God knows we've tried. But we have only been finished with our construction not even long enough to get a C of O. And I really don't want to answer somebody's question about which direction I'm going to park my cars, because I'm the car dealer, and it doesn't matter. They're going to be neat, they're going to be clean, they're going to be organized, they're going to be orderly. We don't know which way. When the designer drew that, they had to draw it one way or the other. We don't know which way that is.
Okay, well,
Why such intensity about something so minimal?
I don't think there normally would be. It's just that, it's the fact that the way they're parked now, they don't conform to what you and this board agreed to. I think that's the problem right now.
So if I'm asking that question, and again, I didn't tell you to do anything about it, if I'm asking that question, do you think we keep parking them this way? It's me trying to brainstorm how we can come to a solution here or fix this without me having to either, one, not issue your CO, or two, go forward with zoning violations, which is part of why you're here to talk to the board too. Maybe they can help you brainstorm a solution. Like, this is like the nicest way we can go about this. I think we should talk about that back lot too. I'm a little worried about that because I know that you're counting on that as your sort of plan for where you're going to put the extra cars, the duplicates, or the wholesale cars. And I'm worried or skeptical that the board will be able to approve that just because it's already a non-conforming use. And if you're parking cars back there that are associated with business, then that's an extension of that use. So you're expanding a non-conforming use. And you're expanding it into a new zoning district. That lot back there is in the ag zoning district. And that's definitely not a use allowed in the ag zoning district. I'm not saying that a farmer wouldn't have ever parked a vehicle back there, but to park vehicles that are associated with a car dealership business, I really think falls into the category of this use, which would be expanded even more. So I don't want you to pull your eggs in that basket, because that might not be something they can approve.
Jim, in 1974, I worked for the town of Middlebury for the police department. Beckwith Motors parked cars up there. So I happen to know, I've lived it, I've seen it, and I know it existed. And they used to park wrecks up there as well. You can get people that have been around a long time will tell you that that's what it was used up
So
there.
Beckwith was before Shea.
Yes. I mean, I'm not, like I said, I'm not here to carry anybody's water,
I
but
couldn't
when
have said
somebody
that.
starts giving me a
I
little
couldn't have said
history.
that with more ameliorative language.
Right.
I said you might not want to put all your eggs in one basket.
Right.
I mean, come on, how much nicer can I be here, right? Like, you just, maybe the board won't approve it. I just don't want you to count on it as a definite thing, because it sounds like we'd have to do some look into some old aerial photos or something.
What would make that 4 acres into some usable land?
For this business,
Yeah.
you would have to prove, just speaking off the top of my head, and I'm not an attorney, maybe someone has an attorney who would figure this out better, but you'd have to prove that it was a grandfathered use, which I've heard you use that terminology before, but what it means is that it would have remained in continuous use and not had a cessation of use for more than 6 months. So Beckwith would have had to keep parking those cars there all the way through to today. That's my sort of back of the napkin sort of legal viewpoint on that, but I can look into it more. What you might have to do is to start thinking of other places along Route 7 that have a warehouse or a lot where you could park some of those wholesale cars or some of your duplicates or something, because it just seems like the intensity of use might be causing some ongoing problems. So I just want to open that conversation now.
Jennifer, do you anticipate any problems other than the town to get back there? Because, boy, that seems like if there's a way to get around, to make it work, that is an awfully complete solution to this problem if it can be made to work. But do they have to pull a state permit to cross the stream and stuff?
Well, there are some wetlands things going on there, right?
There was an existing field road there, so the access to the back was there before we started, before we were
Is
there.
it culverted?
Yeah, it was, the old culvert is still there. We didn't replace the culvert, so that did exist.
I mean, what I heard from the applicant tonight, that there are elements of the business he doesn't control, didn't know about in the planning phase, which, everyone who's ever planned a project or run a business sympathizes with you. And yet we find ourselves in this situation where the cars don't fit on the parcel that you bought for the car dealership and built and invested a bunch of money. It seems to me that if there's some way we can find to make that backlot approach work, really solves a lot of problems at a stroke.
How large is that lot?
4.5 acres. 8.5 acres total, 4.5.
I mean,
unused
the back,
approximately.
the hill and back.
Car dealership below the PhD.
Well, one obvious option would be a zoning change, but that's a time,
The planning commission.
that's the planning commission and select board.
Well, I think you got the carrot and the stick there, though. I mean, you've got an awfully good argument for trying to make this work. And
Except the zoning.
no, he's saying ask for
Have
a
a-
zoning change.
Another way is a zoning change.
How do you do that?
Planning commission who can change the zone, like they have been doing it, right along on Route 7.
So how long is that? That's at least a year-long process there.
Yeah, well, as I say, it takes a while, but, I mean, the Route 7 corridor has been, the zoning has been changed quite often.
Well, I don't think they can wait.
Well, I'm just saying that, I said that's another option that takes time.
Is that ag land back there?
It is the ag district.
You're not gonna farm it, there, trust me.
We put a really, really big barn back there for cows.
Okay, well, are there any other concerns on the board right now about other subject matters?
Jennifer, you started at the beginning of this by saying the zoning violations were were primarily around the number of cars on the lot. I haven't seen any kind of memo or anything. This is all informal. Are there other violations or alleged violations
Is
or
it-
possible?
Did you say you haven't read the memo?
No, I haven't. I didn't get it in the packet unless it was just in the email.
Hang on 1 second, I'm just looking at something.
Is it my understanding there's a concern about the lighting, the brightness of it is,
Yeah, but we have to go take a look at that.
okay.
Seems to be getting a lot of phone calls about the lighting. It seems like it's so bright. It's so much brighter than Foster, so I'm just gonna hop out there some night with your permission and just check the lighting levels and just see if they match the number of lumens in the lighting plan. I'm sure they do if your contractor
We would
installed
welcome
them.
that.
Yeah, absolutely.
So they mentioned Foster. Did they mention G-Stone?
Or maybe it was G-Stone they mentioned, I don't know.
Because if you
It
look
was
at
G-Stone,
them,
maybe.
I've gone across and sat there and sat in G-Stone's lot to make sure. And when we talked about the lighting, we specifically spoke not about G-Stone, not about Foster. We spoke about in front of the college, because that road was particularly bright. So when Louise was here, she did everything in the number of looms to make sure that it didn't exceed, and everything there does not exceed the loom. So when will you come, so this way we can start to eliminate some of the simple ones? When will you do that?
You think you're eliminating an existing violation? I just told you, I haven't even checked it yet. And I'm sure if your materials, you said your supplier installed this, like Peck or somebody? If Peck installed it, I'm sure it's fine. We're just gonna double check it and make sure. So until I get a reading that indicates that there's a problem, I wouldn't start crossing it off a list because it's not on the list.
Okay, so then, other than the number of cars,
Um,
what other issues are on the list?
Yeah. landscaping, do you want to talk about landscaping at all? We talked about that during the site visit, it's just not the right year for landscaping,
Yeah.
or the right time of year for landscaping.
Jen,
We are all prepped for it.
is this the list you're working on?
Yep,
Can we just give them a copy?
I sent it to them.
Get out of here?
We have a copy.
Yes, I sent it to them.
I mean, we're not solving anything. They gotta make some corrections. Give 'em-
Right, you know, I'm a little unsettled though, that like where this conversation has settled out is, yes, we agree with Jen that you should really think of ways of reducing your inventory, that this conversation has turned into, let's see if we can get the planning commission to change the zoning. I don't think
No.
that's
Well,
realistic, but
that's
I
a
don't want to leave
suggestion.
them with that message.
We're not gonna do that. They're gonna do that. They're gonna apply for that, if that's,
Is that the message you want to leave them with?
well, we're not gonna apply for it, are we?
No, I think that's a mischaracterization.
Yeah, I don't-
What-
yeah, I-
My sense is that we came to a consensus that there's going to be an operation shakedown period where they are going to make an effort to open the lot to they're already, and will continue to make an effort on the unloading, loading issue. They're going to try to reduce the total number of average daily parks on the property and be able to tell us at some point whether they can achieve 183, 283, 220, whatever they think the stable number is. That's the more important piece of this, to me. And then the question, and then the third part of it is what you just described, which is that I think they need to have simultaneously be developing a backup plan, and the only suggestion that I've seen for a backup plan that works is offsite. I mean, and of all the offsite arrangements I can think of, one of them doesn't involve them going out and buying property or leasing property. It involves them getting a permission from the town and some minor construction to, relatively minor, not vertical, it's horizontal construction, with not a lot of infrastructure, to solve this on their own property. In which case, if it's a problem that, I guess I'm already 2 steps down the decision tree by the time I get to the lot, but I think it's something that has to be pursued as a possibility so we understand if it's even possible, if the applicant wants to solve it that way.
Is there such a thing as a conditional occupancy permit or a temporary occupancy permit?
Probably, but I'm not really looking for suggestions on how I should fix the certificate of occupancy issue here.
No, I'm just concerned that if, my concern is one that is seen all over the country, that business people will make major investments in things without obeying the rules that are imposed by local bodies. And then when they're called to task, they come along and say, but I spent all this money, you have to let me do it. Otherwise, I'll have to close and we'll lose all these jobs. I mean, you know, it's sort of like blackmail. So I'm wondering whether an occupancy permit, once granted, is permanent.
You guys ask me a lot of really complex legal questions, like I do my best, but
Well,
I don't know.
Well,
like,
But do you see
I
my,
should have Benj come to the meetings or something.
do you see my point?
well,
I mean, it's all very well that
Yeah,
they can
but the-
work it down,
they
but
could comply with all the conditions. They get the CO, and then they could violate, and it would be in sort of the same situation. They'd have a certificate of occupancy, but they still might be become in violation of zoning ordinance, and then we'd have to deal with it.
I can drive by every day and say, hey, get all those cars out from in front of the building,
But
get that
my
car
question,
carrier.
my question, Jen, is, and maybe I shouldn't even ask this, but are you going to be able to issue a certificate of occupancy?
I don't know, I haven't decided yet.
But so it's your decision.
That's not what we're here to talk about.
I understand that, but can you do it if you wanted to?
Not with open zoning violations unless I find a way around it. I don't know. Like, again, I'm not here to talk about that tonight. I'm here to talk about the zoning violations that exist, and if you guys feel like you want to see another application from them right away, or if you want to
Okay, if it's
Convince
the
them to
consensus of this board to give them more time to see if they can come in compliance with the conditions of their permit?
What about the easy fix stuff? Like the fact that they're approved for 24 cars in front of the front building line. So that if we count the number of spaces on both sides of the, like, if you're looking at the front of the building, you've got some striped spaces on either side of the building. That's 24 spaces right there. And it says in the minutes that there were never supposed to be any cars parked in front of the actual building structure itself. Easy stuff like that, we can clean up now.
Well,
Right?
when you say in front, are you talking about along Route 7 side? Yeah, okay. So in front could mean the north end where the sales offices are and whatever.
Then like the
but-
frontage along the road.
Okay, that's just a point of clarification.
So I wasn't here when this was approved, but that's what the minutes are telling me was important to you. And that's what the decision is reflecting. See, I'm also bridging time with another planner and trying to understand where they're at.
I think it would be a reasonable
Yeah, this is-
request from the board to the applicant that in the next time between now and our next meeting, if they would reply and say, we can't address these 5, we can't address this one, we could address this one, but there's a bit of uncertainty about it that requires a federal, state permit. And just give us a rundown of what you think a plan forward is based on the checklist. I mean, I think that's the next step, because we don't even have that at this point.
How does this board get its authority to start dealing with zoning violations?
I think what Jennifer said is it's from a
I
continuing.
really don't want to have to send these guys notice of violation. I really don't want to have to do that. I don't think it's going to help anybody. It's just going to piss them off. It's going to cost us a ton of money. Like, if we can work this out amicably, I want to. And so that's why they're here in front of the board to try to figure out, is there anything we can do to work together? But I think that you guys are going to have to come our way a little bit too in terms of reducing the overall inventory, and then maybe they can come your way a little bit in terms of trying to figure out where to put things. I wasn't here at the time when you approved the variance and approved the continuation of a non-conforming use, but I get the sense that you were trying to help a guy out. So since we're already in kind and friendly territory, I think we're continuing to help them try to figure this out.
So, let me give you a sample, okay, of how things might work. A livable sample. A bank calls me and says, you have $2 million worth of used car inventory. You're supposed to have $1.6 million. We're not going to give you another dime until you have $1.6 million. Reasonable or unreasonable? Unreasonable. So Mike and I pony up and say, tell you what, rather than take that hardcore approach, which does nothing except detain our business from doing business, and it's way too radical, I said, why don't we do this? I have $2 million worth of inventory, and you know it, and you want me to have 1.6 million. So in 30 days, I'll have 1.95, and in 60 days, I'll have 1.80, and in 90 days, I'll have 1.65. And we can keep functioning just the way we are, because we're the persons that operate the business, and we probably know how to get rid of the inventory best. They said, yes, that was logical. Their first part was illogical, okay? I can't bury the cars, I can't stack the cars, and nor have I ever suggested that we're going to get the C of O and go that route. So that's out of the question. So in 3 months, I did exactly what the bank wanted. Everybody was happy. Now they tell me, you have $7 million worth of new car inventory. You're supposed to have $5.5 million in new car inventory. But because it was General Motors, they wouldn't say, we're not giving you any more inventory. So I said, how about in 1 month, we'll have $6.5 million. In 2 months, we'll have $6 million. And in 3 months, we'll have $5.5 million. Their answer, unreasonable. My answer, reasonable. They went along with it. We beat all of the... So Why can't we put it in a discussion that has more to do with, let's have a plan and work the plan, instead of, how are you going to take away 100 cars tomorrow? Because we're not. It's illogical. It doesn't represent what a business should do, and it would only be, wouldn't be at your expense, it would be at my expense and Mike's expense. Okay? So why not a stair-step plan that makes sense without all of the sniping, so that we can say, we've never not done what Middlebury wanted. And we want to know what we need to do to get our C of O, because now you're detaining us from doing business. So why can't we organize a plan? And why can't somebody say, hey Tom, hey Mike, what's your plan? And that's what I would do. I would say, we'll have this number by this time, we'll have this number by this time, then you can hold our fingers to the fire, okay? And it would work so much nicer.
You keep saying it like, what did you, why the hell do you think you're here? I mean, you're here.
what is your
because
plan?
we're doing that,
Well,
it sounds like you're
I
proposing
found
a
out 2 days
phased.
ago I was coming here, so
Well, okay.
I'm not, but I could have a plan very quickly, okay? And we need to have the C of O so we can finish our financial situation, okay? Then in the letter, one of the other things was that maybe we would hold money in an escrow for landscaping, okay? Is that really necessary? Why can't we say, we've already put all the rocks in place, and all we need to do is figure out some bushes, dig a hole and stick the bushes in there, and we're all set to go. Escrow? Really?
You don't like ideas. You're not a brainstormer kind of guy. I'm just throwing out ideas. That's something
No,
that we
no,
discuss
that's,
as the board.
I perceive that as a threat.
Oh, you want a threat? A threat is when I send you a letter and say, you owe us this. I'm not issuing the C of O until you do this. I'm issuing you a zoning violation today. That's a threat. No one is even close to threatening you, so don't cry poor on that. You're here and we're all working together and we're all trying to figure something out. And you can be confrontational if you want to, but I'm trying to avoid that to the best of my ability.
I have no
This memo
intentions.
is an FYI. This is letting you know what I observed when I was out there. You shouldn't take offense to it. Like you said to Ann, I said something that made you emotional or upset. I didn't mean to say something that made you feel emotional or upset. This is just a summary of what I saw when I was out there. And so we're here to try to work it out. But I would suggest, Mr. Chair, that we are at the end of trying to figure anything out here. And that maybe we go into deliberative sessions, try to figure out a new plan of attack.
Okay. Is there a motion to go into a deliberative session at this time
For what?
to discuss this?
I don't see how we can do this. I do not see how we can do this. I don't. I'm sorry. I will not be part of any deliberative discussion in secret session, so I'm just telling you.
Okay, then don't. I mean, it's not
How
necessary.
about, he says he's got a plan, he can set it on paper and bring it to us,
Well,
bring it to you,
yes.
and then we can look at it. Maybe okay, maybe not.
I was just gonna say, when we started this wasn't, there's no decision here, there's no anything. This was more or less a brainstorming session or a informational session for us to be able to speak with Deniker. So I guess my clarifying question is, do we even have the ability to go into a deliberative session?
Probably
Since we're
not.
Well,
Probably
then-
not. Let's not do that.
Okay.
Don says that I should just handle it. I'll just handle it. It's fine, I'll handle it. But, you guys said at the last meeting that you wanted to talk about this a little bit. You've got this whole condition in there that I don't understand. That's about, calling them back to discuss zoning violations. So here we are.
I just think, Jen, that the people who made a really significant investment in our community, and I know they're not everybody always does the right thing. I went around this morning and took some pictures of places that don't exist on Route 7 that are in major violation, and it seems like, and like I said, I'm not carrying anybody's water, it seems like we only seem to pick on those people on Route 7, in my opinion, over the years.
I've been here a year. He's requesting a CO. Which means that as a zoning administrator, I have to issue a document that says that I think that it's all in compliance.
And I understand that,
It's
Jenna.
clearly not in compliance, so the conditions.
Well, my feeling is that I think the applicant, he's admitted that it's been a learning curve, and that he's willing to come up with a plan to maybe phase the number of cars. He's already agreed to unload the trucks off Route 7, to me, is a major accomplishment. If we give him some more time, it would be my feeling, if we gave him some more time to sort through this business and see how it goes, and if he can reduce the number of cars, and if he can come up with a plan that's reasonable, I would say I'm happy with that. Now,
But you can't issue the,
whether saying that allows Jen to give you a certificate of occupancy, I don't know.
right.
That's my issue to decide.
Okay.
I agree with Kevin, and frankly, I found, you know, the applicant was feeling upset, but saying something that was kind of conciliatory. At least it sounded like what I had just said to him, which is that we can issue a punch list, not a formal notice of violation, but as you do in a construction project, you issue a punch list that tells you where you need to be. And I think that the sooner we heard that from you, the better. It doesn't have to be anything elaborate. For me, it just needs to be, you know, here's a violation. A, we don't agree this is a violation. Or B, it's a violation, it's already fixed. C, it's a violation, we need to fix it quickly. D, we have no fix for this at all. Please help. F, we can fix it, but we need your help, or we need the state, or we need the zoning changed, or whatever. I think Jennifer's done actually a great job of laying out everything that she sees, and I know that you never intended to show up here with 100 more cars than you want. I run a business. I know that I don't have the right amount of lumber that I want every month, or on the right day of the month for my bank. But I feel like if we had some plan, which is what you just proposed, I think it would be a great step forward. I do know that other businesses for whom I've built buildings have had a serious problem with conditional or temporary C of O, particularly those who had licenses, such as state business licenses or liquor licenses. But that's off my purview.
Okay. Are we all done with this discussion for tonight? Okay. Other business. Thank you, by the way.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming in.
Rick, leave? No. Okay, Rick, we're into other business. Any other business for tonight?
No.
Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Moved and seconded.
Yeah, you can. You're good to move. Yeah.
Any discussion on the motion?
Way to make it work.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.